Good evening, guten Abend, namaskaram, milovani dieti, and welcome to our satsang tonight. We have the opportunity to have an even deeper experience tonight than we've had in the past, and that despite the fact that I am a bit tired because my schedule has been moving, and so I'm forcing myself into a little bit of a new one. But nonetheless, I look forward to spending time with you this evening. How do you feel? Can you hear me? And if you can hear me, how are you feeling and why? If you want to share that briefly in the comments. I am heartened by those who choose to enjoy and excited about where we can go tonight. I want to invite in the Spirit of God tonight especially. So what does that mean? It means that I want to invite in an energy of transformation and healing, and I want us to desire to attempt to reach a higher level of happiness and openness for ourselves to the divine pattern and plan which is present for each of us in our lives. Now, how am I going to do that? I'm going to connect to the energy. Fantastic, Daniela. Thank you. I'm going to connect to that energy as best I can and invite it. And then I'm going to invite you to join me in the energy which is present, to lift yourself up, to gain a higher ground, a higher spiritual locality and feeling and sensation for yourself, to pull yourself up onto and to allow yourself to go beyond your normal standard capacity of wherever it is that you are through the day, and say, what is the divine level of where I can be and who I can be today? What would that be at? To pull into your body and into your entire energetic field and your system the highest capacity of your enjoyment and ultimately pleasure, and also perhaps, as we say, conviction, as some say, conviction as to your next level, your journey, your desires, your path, your passion, your foundation. The candle is sitting on a beautiful plate in front of me. The scent tonight is rose that is being diffused, which is a very special one. We don't use that one very often. So that's the scent in the air. So if you can imagine or smell your own roses tonight, that's your opportunity, or perhaps you can through me. It's a very special scent that, again, I never had the opportunity to smell Bulgarian roses until we invested in that particular experience. So that's here tonight. And with that said, I choose to guide us in the self-empathy meditation for a few minutes tonight to begin. So if you have invited in that spirit and that energy, and if you have closed your eyes for a moment and felt into me, wherever you are, wherever you feel, to allow yourself to experience this energy that passes between us and as we refine it together. I'm going to invite you to further close your eyes, take a breath, and another breath. And another breath. And I want you to locate in your body where you're feeling the most tension, pain, and discomfort, or discomfort. I was absolutely sure this would be the one spot that had been hurting me all day, but it is not hurting anymore. So that is not where it is with me. Where in your body do you notice the most pain or tension or discomfort? And you're welcome to place a hand there if you wish, or both hands there if they reach. And breathe into and be present with it. Connect to that sense or sensation of what may be minor or major discomfort or tension or simply lack of pleasure. Feeling that space and noticing it as you pay attention to it. And noticing any transformation that happens as you do so. Does the pain become more intense or less intense? Does the sensation change character? Does it migrate so that you notice a new place, perhaps, that draws your attention and your focus? And if so, you can pay attention there and bring your attention there. Breathing into it. And noticing again how it perhaps shifts or changes or transforms. Or perhaps migrates again, so that another place becomes most prominent to you. Just spending time in and with your body. Focusing on your body. Feeling your body. And noticing all the places that provide sensation. And your experience of them now in this moment. Perhaps noticing your gratitude for your body. Or for where you are, or how things are right now. Even in the discomfort. Even in what might be labeled pain. Feeling that sense and sensation. And not pushing it away, not fighting it, not running with it, not denying it. Regardless of how pleasant or not it is. Regardless of how enjoyable or not it is. And perhaps noticing a myriad of sensations about which you were ignorant just a little bit ago, or unaware. And allowing your body to give you all the messages your body has to give you now. You may even choose to breathe out with a sound. To give whatever tension is there a voice. Allowing yourself after this to return back into your body, into your reality, back into the room around you, becoming aware of it, opening yourself, opening your eyes, and joining us again. And if you learn something, if you experience something through that, feel free to share it. And feel free to connect to the quality of questions today. If questions arise during anything that we're doing, anything that we're saying, then please input them, share them, connect to us all, share where you're at, what might be coming up for you, so we can create a dialogue if possible. I'm happy you bought the candles. I want to share as the next bit something like our article of faith, and you can feel into it and or comment on it. Number 1, I commit to following Jesus. Not interpretations of Jesus, not the so-called Christian church, not the Bible as a whole, and not any particular preacher, but Jesus. I cultivate a personal connection with Jesus via study, practice, and exploration. I believe Jesus' words and actions are most wise and useful for a happy, healthy life and community. Through Jesus, we enjoy the abundant life. Thank you, Daniela. I'll share it one more time. Number 1, I commit to following Jesus. Not interpretations of Jesus, not the so-called Christian church, not the Bible as a whole, and not any particular preacher, but Jesus. I cultivate a personal connection with Jesus via study, practice, and exploration. I believe Jesus' words and actions are most wise and useful for a happy, healthy life and community. Through Jesus, we enjoy the abundant life. So why do I say that? And why does, in my understanding of spirituality, or the structure I've created, or I am creating right now, called Christotantrism, hold Jesus in such high esteem? Why should it matter what's in the New Testament? You can find everything about the New Testament, every opinion on YouTube from people's idea that Jesus never existed, was simply made up, through the fact that he was just a guy, through that he was the savior of all mankind, the living God, and all you have to do is pledge belief in him and you'll be saved from hellfire and damnation, and hundreds of other beliefs in between. And I've started out in a space where we had a particular conception of Jesus that I'm going to say is a little bit sophomoric. It's a little bit immature. In the school I had growing up, let's say, and if you look at, this is something for later reference, Fowler's Stages of Faith, then you can see how faith can grow and transform as you get older, as you mature. And that definitely happened with me And the spiritual context that I was within did not allow me to continue to live in that level of faith, that understanding, that belief that I had when I was a child or even a young adult. I needed to grow beyond that, and I needed to understand further. And the more that I experience and dive into Jesus, I realize I've had experiences with Jesus as I understand him, and miraculous intercessions. And also, there's one saying, a more godly man and a more what's the saying? And a more human divine. In other words, we take people and we put them on pedestals, even Jesus, and we say this is the supreme absolute, and this is where we should be trying to get someday, or this is something that we can never aspire to, when actually Jesus said the complete opposite. He says, don't you know your scriptures say you're God, so how come I'm in trouble for saying I'm the Son of God, if you, even your own scriptures say you are gods? He's quoting Psalms when he says that. So are we all gods? Are we all divine or not? Or was just one of us? Or it was just Jesus? Or how does that work? So when he says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, no man comes to the Father but by me, there's a particular translation of that for the Christian church. And my translation is, you cannot get past a certain level of spirituality without understanding concepts that Jesus was talking about, without embracing them, without living them, without exploring them, without diving into them, without understanding them. And so that knowledge and exploration has become the foundation of my spirituality, supplemented with a body positive exploration of consciousness, which comes through Tantra. Now, this month we've talked about a bunch of scriptures. We started with straight is the gate, narrow is the way. We looked at the parable of the virgins. We considered the wheat and the tares. And today we're going to be looking at John 14:26 or Luke 14:26. But next week and for the next month, I plan to look at the other side of the equation. I'm going to look at tantric scriptures. I'm going to look at Kashmiri Shivite tantric teachings and teachings about the body, about consciousness, and we're going to be discussing those more deeply. And I plan to alternate back and forth, and we'll see how that goes. But before I did, I wanted to say and invite you to have that opportunity to study the Gospels. What are the Gospels? The Gospels are the first 4 books of the New Testament: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In them, you'll find the sayings and doings of Jesus. And then everything from that point interprets it, explores it, expresses it. But the sayings and doings of Jesus specifically are only in those 4 books. And that's all that exists in the Christian canon as legitimate. We don't know if the other Gospels that were written or created are accurate. There's a Gospel of Mary Magdalene. There's a Gospel of Thomas. There's a Gospel of Peter. There's even a Gospel of Judas. So there's all sorts of other things that talk about Jesus, what he said, what he did. Someone long ago decided, okay, these ones are not the valid ones. These are only the valid ones. And regardless of the validity of the other ones, I'm encouraging you to dive into the first 4, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, as deeply as you can. And I think you'll find there's so much there that you will stay busy for a very, very long time without necessarily needing to wander to the others. And if you do, then it will be when you're in a spiritual state where you can translate for yourself what is valuable and what is not. And I'm not even going to say or guarantee that everything in the Gospels is 100% gospel truth, no pun intended. But if you want to understand this fellow, this guy, Jesus, and where he came from and what he was doing and what he planned and what he was talking about, separate from anyone else's interpretations of that I'm going to recommend, that you look at that. And as I've done that, combined with my experiences through the years, my understanding has widened and opened to the point where I can claim right now that I believe that Jesus gave us the complete template for happiness personally and in civilization. And every other personal development journey from that point, whether you're looking at Stoicism or down to your local life coach and every other religion and everything in between, is contained somewhere in there. In fact, everything that I do and talk about, even in the weeks where I'm talking about Tantra, I want to find places in the Gospels especially, but also in the wider scripture, that reference, that recommend these practices, these teachings, these ideas from Jesus. Jesus said a lot of them, they were very hidden, buried, perhaps they were removed, but you can still find the foundation of them, the skeleton of them, as you dive into the Gospels and the wider works from the scriptures. And so I want to do that, to provide justification and explanation about what it is we're doing, why we're doing it, why I'm recommending it. And with that said, after taking a drink, I'd like to dive into some of the deepest stuff we've discussed so far. And this is some of the deepest, most challenging words of Jesus that either are ignored or not paid attention to or discounted as you move forward in your discussion and search for the authentic Jesus and what he was actually saying and why. So if we go to Luke 14:26, I have 20 translations open right in front of me. And the Common English Version, which as you know is one of my favorites, says, "You cannot be my disciple unless you love me more than you love your father and mother, your wife and children, and your brothers and sisters. You cannot come to me unless you love me more than you love your own life." And that is one of the more gentle translations. If we go to the King James Version, it says, "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." And there's one translation here. It says, "If someone comes to me and does not hate," hyperbolically in comparison to Moshiach, as it says here, the Messiah, his own Abba and Em, mother and father, and in addition to his own life, he's not able to be my disciple. Okay, so this is pretty intense. Jesus recommending hatred for those who are closest to us. So this one scripture where they provided this little parenthetical comment hyperbolically in comparison to him. So explains what he means. And most people are going to read this and say, well, he doesn't want you to hate your beloveds. But by comparison, he wants you to hate them, really. To be in enmity to and disconnected from the family, your closest family. Why? And if you read the rest of the scriptures that talk about the family, he's going to say, if you were not ready to give up your mother, your father, even your children, even your own life, you can't follow me. And why is he saying that? Why is he saying you have to give up all of these people, all of these connections that are the closest to you, that you love the most, that love you the most, that have been your foundation? And I had the idea this week, and this was the question that came out behind it. What if you were born into a prison, within a prison, within a prison, and you were told that your jailer was your benefactor? If you grew up in a prison and your jailer brought you your gruel every day, and they brought you new sheets once a month, you would think this person is making my life so wonderful. They're giving me so much. They're teaching me, they're sharing with me, they're showing me. When in reality, there could be a beautiful world out there and you would have no idea about it because they were imprisoning you. This is the exact story of the Matrix, which is also the exact story of Jesus. I started reading a book today, and it's called The Murder of Christ by Wilhelm Reich. And he talks about the trap that we're all in. We're all in a trap, and everyone, or a prison, and everyone talks about how do we make the prison more beautiful, or how do we succeed in the competition of inmates? How do we make ourselves happier within this prison environment? And this is the whole search of the philosophers and the people who are telling you how to get a good job and how to make more money. All the people who are telling you how to have better relationships and how to be healthier. They're all telling you how to work within the prison system. And virtually no one is telling you, number one, that you're in prison, and number two, how to get out of prison. And I thought that was a beautiful statement, a beautiful metaphor, and it's exactly what the Matrix is talking about. And he said, if anyone actually demonstrated that you were in prison and showed you how to get out of that prison, that person would probably be murdered or attacked. And that's exactly what happened to Jesus. And that's what he illustrated and told the story. Someone came telling you, hey, wait a second, you're in prison. You need to get out. And then everyone said, no, we will kill you. Don't tell us this thing. And they did, right? Why? Anarchist theory, Proudhon and others, says that there are three things that are imprisoning us. Number one is the state. So we realize that there's things that even now it's more intense than ever. The government are telling you what to do and how to do it. And that may or may not be in your best interest. Number two, capitalism. The idea that whoever has money gets to make the rules, gets to starve the others if they don't obey, pays everyone, gets all the profits, and everyone just has to suffer. So the whole feudalistic structure that we have that's around money. And number three, and this is the one that people don't understand, even if they see the other two, and waking up to any level of this is tremendous psychological and spiritual growth. And if you can wake up to all the levels, well, you're hit the jackpot. You're doing great. But that third level is the family. And we have so much about honor thy father and thy mother, and obey your parents, and honor your elders and obey them. We have all of this teaching that comes down to us to tell us that we need to fit in within the structure and the organization of the family somehow, which is our first cell in society, our first understanding of this is the world, and our family is a little tiny prison. It just has to be. It is. I'll explain why moving forward. And we think this is the whole reality. This is the whole truth. This is how relationships run based upon how I've seen my mother and father interact. This is how others interact with, how authority interacts with the youth or the children based upon, again, the family system. And this is your entire concept of how things are, who I am in the world, what my capacities are, what my capabilities are, who I should become is based upon who they think I should become, who I am, what I'm able to do is based upon what they tell me I can do and I should do. And all of that comes from our families first. Everything else, every other idea about ourselves comes first from the family, and it's only after a much larger extrapolation that we even care about society and friends and religion and then the state. But if that first structure didn't exist, which was the family, and what's your parents' job? Your parents' job is to keep you from getting arrested and thrown in jail, and or shot by police, and or working well within society, to have the job, to not rock the boat, to make money, to be a contributing member of society. That's what their job is. And so everything that they're doing from the time that you're born is focused on making sure you don't stick out, making sure you're not too loud, making sure you're not making too much noise, making sure you're not breaking the rules, and making sure you're coloring within the lines as dictated by your society. Now, if you're born in Iran, then for women, you're going to be wearing a hijab. You're not going to be allowed to eat pork or drink alcohol. You're going to be told you're going to be married off as one of many wives to any particular man in the culture, and you're not allowed to participate in many things that the men are, and that's how things are in your cell. And if you're born into the Western world, you're going to get other structures around what it means to be a woman or a man, what it is you should be doing, what will show that you are valuable. For me, it was, okay, get married, have kids, that's what you need to do, and make lots of money, and maybe be an engineer because you're smart, blah, blah, blah. So you have all these structures given to you. And it doesn't matter how big the prison is. It doesn't matter how beautifully appointed it is. It's still a prison. And no one was sitting there saying, well, what are your needs? What are your desires? How would you like to explore and express in the world? Who would you like to be? And I was watching Dana Martin today, who's one of my favorites. She talks about radical unschooling. She raised her children with the idea that, and this comes from Asha Rosenberg as well, there's no right way to be, and nobody knows what it is. In other words, when you go into school, school builds that prison even more effectively around you and says, well, you need to learn these things: reading, writing, arithmetic, geometry, trigonometry. How many times have I used trigonometry after the 11th grade? Never. And then I took calculus. How many times have I used calculus since the 11th grade? Never. Right? And they teach you how to diagram sentences. How many times have I used that? Never. They teach you all of these things that are within the conception and a history that is written by the victors and the winners. If you want to read real history, go read what the losers and the defeated said about it. And you're given all of these constraints and these structures to fit within all of these ideas. And nowhere, and this is what brings us to what we're doing and we're talking about, is this more important than in sexuality and intimacy and relating? All of the ideas are given to you about when you're allowed to be intimate, with whom, how you're allowed to explore your sexuality. In my religion, even when you're allowed to touch yourself or not. And all of that is a structure of good, bad, right and wrong, straight up to heaven and hell, or your eternal salvation, or however they want to phrase it, but extreme rules around everything. So rather than there's no one way to be, and we don't know what that is, the message that we all received is there's a very specific way to be, and we know what it is, and if you do what we tell you, you'll be happy and you'll be successful. And if you go outside that, you will be punished, and you will go to hell, and you will not be happy, right? And that is the matrix. That is the prison inside your mind that Morpheus was talking about. That is the idea that if you begin to listen to yourself, if you listen to your deepest intuitions, if you're listening to your gut instinct, if you're listening to your deepest feelings, which are your connection to the divine just as much as anything anyone else has, if you begin to listen to that, you're not going to be welcome, you're not going to be loved, you're not going to be accepted, you're not going to be part of the fold, and you will be rejected, and you'll be in terrible danger, and in fact, you may be killed. And that's ultimately what happened to Jesus and those people who tend to follow him. They have to be very careful, wise as serpents and harmless as doves, in trying to figure out how to live their actual truth, because the world, you get too loud about, including Reich, happened to him as well. You get too loud about it, too specific, and say, well, this is the way I want to be, completely separate from all of your training and teaching, completely separate from all of your beliefs and ideas, completely separate from how solid I'm supposed to be, how much I'm supposed to be doing what you tell me to do, and I'm going to live in my own truth and my own light and my own life, then you're going to invite the hammer down upon you. And for years I have sat here knowing the hammer existed and wondering, how is it that we're going to get outside this? How is it that we're going to be able to be ourselves in a world that tells us to be a certain way? In the past centuries, they used to have secret groups that did exactly this. People would explore their bodies and pleasure and connection and life and expression and alternate financial arrangements and everything else, and they would have to do it in secret, because things like the Inquisition would come along and simply murder anyone who wasn't doing what the church / the status quo / the state told them to do. They were extracting energy from the people like farm animals, and if you stepped outside that system, you were dead. And so the only way that you could do that was to be very, very secretive and very, very hidden. And they find, in fact, they're digging out old barnyards and houses and things in Europe, and they'll find meeting rooms and conclave rooms and places where people gathered to have ceremonies and to do rituals and to explore. Even reading the Bible could get you burned at the stake when the Bible was first translated into German and then English as the first languages. They would burn you at the stake for reading it or translating it. In other words, they were not happy for anyone to be looking for alternate ideas that didn't match the power structures and the status quo. And it could get you killed, printing it, distributing information. And every new invention, this happened again and again. How do we rein that information in? How do we prevent people from having that experience, that exploration? How do we prevent them from getting this information? When Google started scanning in all the books in all the libraries, they were sued by the authors, by the publishing houses that said, no, you can't do that. Stop scanning books. Stop scanning in the contents of all the libraries of the world, which would be easy technologically. Stop putting that online. Stop allowing anyone to look at that. No, you're violating copyright, which is, again, a system run by the state, which are the people who own and control everything, all of the land, all of the money, everything else, right? As they say. But if we find our own power and we find our own expression, first privately in ourselves, our own light, and begin to live it, and then communally, we cannot be stopped, actually. Now the world is changing and shifting so much that there's a collapse. As I said, the great separation is happening. The great separation is happening, and yes, there will be persecution with that. There will be death with that. There will be many things happening, but there will also be those who are moving completely outside of those existing systems to move into the new world. What is the new world? The new world of happiness, the new world of love, the new world of doing what it is you want to do, and how you expressing how you feel and how you want to feel and what you want to explore. And that's the world that we are coming together to create at the moment, every Sunday at 7 p.m. on time. We're coming together to explore, who am I really? What do I feel really? How do I feel and why do I feel it? What's going on in my body? And what information is coming to me from that? And how can I interact with other people in a way that's going to open up my experience of life and allow me to live the abundance that Jesus was talking about and the happiness that he was talking about? Are you prepared to love? This is the question. So all of the family structures that exist, when you read them, as they say, why don't they allow reverse cowgirl in Alabama? Because you never turn your back on family. Okay, little joke. As the people say, your blood is thicker than water. Your family is the most important. This is told to us over and over again, that you have to take care of your family, you have to listen to your family, you have to love your family. Well, as long as you're within that paradigm, as long as you're within that structure that they gave you, as long as you stay in that prison that they gave you, you're never going to explore or express yourself really in the world. And that's why you have to let them go, give them up, not give them special status. Anytime you are not living your deepest truth because of what someone else is saying or telling you, you are betraying yourself. You are living in dishonesty, disconnection, unlove with yourself. And nowhere do we do that more than with our families, whether it's our spouse or whether that's our parents, whether it's our brothers and sisters. We see them and we say, okay, I hear people all the time. I've been working with people for over a decade. And so many times I hear, well, I would like to X, but my mother. I would like to Y, but what my father would say. And this is said by people who are 40, 50, 60 years old. Sometimes it's said by people whose parents are even dead, and they still cannot do the thing that would be their honest expression of life energy, of joy, of pleasure, of satisfaction, because of what their mother or their dead father would say. And that blows my mind, that they're going to give up their lives, they're going to give up their happiness, they're going to give up their exploration, they're going to give up their pleasure, because of someone who isn't even alive anymore, who apparently is looking down on them and is still living within their head, which again, we can talk about the nature of reality moving forward, telling them what they should do and what they can do and what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad, without being able to feel at all in themselves and make the decision, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to explore, this is who I am, this is what would be fun. Does that make sense? I'm going to go look at the comments again. Oh, a lot of comments. Okay, we'll get to them in just a moment. Yeah, let me take a little break and catch up on the comments here a little bit. Okay. I would never have established a link between Jesus and the Matrix. Wow, but yes, we're in a Matrix. It has never been as evident as the last 2 years. Yes. Thank you, Danielle. Tremendous energy being spent to get us to think, believe, do certain things, follow certain paths, and man, it's just, in some people have fallen for it hook, line, and sinker, and others have started to question, and some have woken up. And that's the deal. Whenever there's a big event, 9/11 was a big one, a lot of people fall further down that path of deception, and some people get woken up, and that's what happens every time. That's what's happening this time as well. Actually, it makes sense. She says the family is a little prison within a bigger prison. They give you first the imprinting and keep you in standards of society and to not be a rebel or an artist often. Yes, art is so dangerous. And this is, I wrote about this, how my father was screaming at me on the phone saying, you can do anything, you can be anything, but don't be an artist, right? You have to get your college degree, you have to have a responsible job, which I did. I followed that path. Well, I didn't fully get the degree, but I ended up working in a job that made a lot of money and things like that. And I went down that path because art has the capacity and the capability to allow new thinking, to allow new paths, which is why it's so controlled by the status quo. We can't have these new ideas or these shattering old paradigms happening, because then people are going to escape out of this matrix and the energy will no longer be able to be harvested. And these last generations are just hypnotized by social media and mobile phones. They barely think for themselves at all. You see that also at school, and they're pampered and protected by parents. Well, we want to fit in. Our greatest desire is to fit in, is to be part of the tribe and the group, and to be rejected feels very dangerous. And as I said, it is even dangerous. People die all the time because they're rejected by the tribe. So yeah, there's a reason why that is. Yes, schools are prisons, and I say it as a teacher. It's a prison both for kids and teachers, programs that spend time and are not very valuable. I mean, we spend, I think, 12,000 hours in schools, staying still from the age of 5 or 6 and not moving except for brief times. And if you move, you are called hyperactive, you're called defective, you're given drugs to stop you at this point, just like Brave New World, Aldous Huxley was talking about. And that's how we treat children. And then after 12,000 hours in school, we're unable to feed ourselves, create our own food, grow our own gardens, even take care of ourselves in a basic way in society. And it requires the state to take care of us if we don't get a low-level job at Starbucks or something, where after 12,000 hours, you're not qualified to do anything special. 12,000 hours. What could you do with 12,000 hours if you focused it on what you wanted, what you needed, what was interesting to you, what you had capability for, and where your magic was, well, you would be doing things that were incredibly valuable to society, and you wouldn't need to be worried about, and you wouldn't need to be unemployed or taken care of, and you could be displaying and exploring your magic, right? 12,000 hours is a lot, but instead we collapse all the minds into one thing, one direction, and they end up being one thing, and they're not terribly good quite often. I mean, I saw kids in school who are horrible at math or horrible at reading, whatever, but could they fix cars or do this and that? But there was no space for them. They had to learn the things which the higher up said they had to learn, and they had to reach a certain level of proficiency, and everybody had to. And as a result, there was 25% dropout rate, which is probably much higher right now. And then the rules are now changing. This whole thing is collapsing. We're going to need to recreate a new world within all these structures. That's just what's going to happen. But yeah, it's a prison for everyone involved. And I read something today. Someone just put on Reddit. She says, I'm a great teacher. I'm one of those who stays behind and helps kids, and I'll bring in food, and I'll buy the kid and clothing if they need them. And she said, and wrote all, I don't know the gender of the person. But anyway, I'm going to say she. So she says, I'm this amazing teacher, and I work so hard, and I'm quitting now because basically the whole system is about suffering and who can suffer the most. And it's not about helping children anymore. And I can't help children within the system. And everyone was telling this person, you go, good job. Like, if that's what you feel, that's what you should do, is to leave. And it's too bad if you feel like you can't contribute within the system. But exactly like you said, Daniela, that this system is exactly built to do exactly that, is exactly built to keep you in this prison. And that's what it does. And there's nothing else it can do, nothing else it does do, nothing else it will do. And so that's where you're at. Oh, there's more? Is there more? Oh, yeah, okay. Yes, the whole system is about suffering, and I doubt I could do it inside system on a lifelong mode. These last years, more and more kids are often diagnosed with hyperactivity and cognitive issues, often by parents' initiatives. Against teachers' advice, with me instead, these students are just normal. Yes, precisely. Everybody's got their own special magic, and then if we label them and then toss them to the side or tell them they're wrong or bad, what is that going to do, and what effect is that going to have? Well, we're seeing that, and that whole wheat and chaff thing is happening, and it just can't continue like it is. Oh. Okay, let me check the rest of my notes. Yeah, so we have to have the courage to let go of all these people who are keeping us in our prisons, all these people who are keeping us held down, who end up being our family and our closest, right? And then what do? Well, then we can choose freely who we want to love, who we want to connect to, how we want to explore, what we want to do. That's what we can do after we make that decision. And that's what Jesus is exploring and expressing, because he says after this, and we'll talk about this in the future, that we can create a society and a community of love as we do that, and as we move through that, and as we choose to open ourselves up to ourselves as our deepest truth, which is how we reach the divine, through yourself and your body. And I'm going to discuss how to do that as well, and why that's true. And then we can create a communal space of love and connection and growth and development, which is what we do. We have a communal existence. We are communal beings, communal animals, if you will. So we have to let go of that old community, that old society that's breaking us, and choose the one that's going to enliven us and strengthen us. And here we are, even in this digital system, seeing that for the future. That feels like enough for today. I'm always astounded at how much comes out, and in these times. Thank you for sharing and playing with me and commenting and connecting. All my love. Wishing you a beautiful, glorious week, and that you have the Spirit of the Divine with you this week to guide you, and that you can follow it in your own heart and soul and learn to free yourself and bring yourself into that deeper place where you're ready to commune and explore yourself and your pleasure and your life without shame and fear. That is my wish for you. Namaskaram. All my love, and we will see you next week.